The
added
Kansas
extra
City Chiefs
unnecessary pressure
narrowly
on him. But I
defeated
mean,
the Las Vegas
that's the type
Raiders
of guy that
in
we've
a game
seen,
that surprised me
on
with how
different
close it
on the
was.
other side of the.
However, I believe the Raiders let this one slip away, something that's been a theme for them this season. They've lost about 4 games that they could have won, and now their record stands at just 2-7. It feels like their season is pretty much over, but there are still some bright spots to look forward to. For instance, DJ Glaze has shown promise over the past few weeks, even though he struggled against the Chiefs, with several mistakes I noticed from the broadcast. We'll need to keep an eye on his development. Then there's the question of whether the Raiders need to invest in a new running back, like Alexander Madison or A.J. Dillon, or if they already have what they need in-house. Players like Isaiah Paul are also worth watching. Will he be part of the team's future? Now, about the game against the Chiefs. The Raiders really missed opportunities that could have changed the outcome. The final score was 27-20, but it felt like the Raiders' offense didn't do enough when they had the chance. There were moments when the defense created opportunities, but the offense couldn't capitalize. For example, early in the third quarter, the Raiders intercepted Patrick Mahomes and got the ball all the way to the 2-yard line. But instead of scoring, they failed on 4 consecutive plays. It's tough to watch when your defense sets you up perfectly, but the offense can't deliver. They tried to run the ball, but after 3 plays, they lost yards instead of gaining them. On 4th down, DJ Glaze was pressured and got sacked. That kind of missed opportunity can be a game changer. Another crucial moment came when the Raiders had the ball at the Chiefs' 32-yard line after a good punt return and a penalty. They only managed to gain about 10 yards and ended up settling for a field goal. Mistakes like a false start really hurt them on that drive, and it's frustrating to see them waste these chances. At one point, the Raiders were just 7 points behind with about 7 minutes left in the game. But then, G. Minshew fumbled the ball, and the Chiefs took advantage, scoring another touchdown. Suddenly, the Raiders were down by 14 points, and it was hard to come back from that. Some fans might want the Raiders to tank the rest of the season, and I get that perspective. However, it's also important for the team to learn how to win games. Players need to step up in crucial moments. The Chiefs are a good example of a team that can still win, even when things aren't going perfectly. Their quarterback might struggle at times, but they find a way to pull through. Ultimately, the Raiders need to figure out how to turn these close games into wins so they can build for the future. The Raiders need to come together as a team and focus on improving. Right now, they sit at 2-6, and while other teams are in similar situations, the Raiders hold the 7th overall pick in the upcoming draft. However, the draft isn't everything. It's hard to predict which quarterbacks will succeed. Just look at the Carolina Panthers. Despite having Bryce Young, they might not draft another QB because it's not just about having a good quarterback. A solid team and coaching staff matter too. Teams like the Tennessee Titans, New England Patriots, Jacksonville Jaguars, and New Orleans Saints have quarterbacks. But winning games is more than just that. Unfortunately, the reality is that the Raiders aren't playing well, and it's unlikely they'll win many more games this season. Sure, they could catch fire and win a few, but that's a long shot. I also want to discuss the Raiders' offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy. It's clear that he's struggling. The team has missed key opportunities, like failing to score when they were at the 2-yard line. Those moments are crucial. There was a play where the quarterback rolled to his left and threw deep, but the receiver, Trey Tucker, stopped instead of continuing his route. This disconnect raises questions about the offense's execution. When I think about the Raiders' struggles, I believe it comes down to poor installation of the offensive system. Players are confused, and that's a big issue. Take the San Francisco 49ers, for example. Their offense runs like a well-oiled machine. The quarterback knows exactly what the receivers are doing, and they execute plays flawlessly. In contrast, the Raiders seem out of sync, with players running into each other and missing blocks. For instance, in a recent game, the tight end and tackle collided because they didn't know their assignments. This kind of confusion has happened too often, and it falls on Getsy to correct it. The Raiders could have pulled off an upset against the Chiefs and turned their season around, but instead, it feels like they're stuck.
It's disappointing because the Raiders have potential and talented players. They might not have superstars everywhere, but they do have guys like Brock Bowers and Jacoby. Plus, running backs like Alexander Madison and Zamir White aren't performing well, partly because of the scheme. If the blocking angles are wrong and players don't know who to block, it all adds up to poor performance. For example, Zamir White ran outside zone plays that didn't suit him well, Antonio Pierce mentioned early in the season that they should focus on what works for him, yet they keep trying plays that aren't effective. In one game, White had a carry that gained 7 yards, but another lost 5, leaving the team in a tough spot on third down. When you keep facing these issues, it leads to struggles on the field and can hurt the team's chances of winning. The Raiders need to address these problems if they want to move forward. After the Raiders had a brief possession, the Chiefs quickly moved down the field and scored a touchdown. Moments like this highlight the need for the Raiders to clean up their game. There was even a play where Desmond Ridder came in, although it didn't count due to a penalty. It seemed like they were trying some sort of read option, but it's hard to see what the Raiders gained from Gardner Minshew being involved. Honestly, I think Minshew might be a better quarterback than Luke Getsy is as an offensive coordinator. That's a bold statement, but I believe it's true. If I were Antonio Pierce, I'd consider firing Getsy right now. Holding on to a coach who clearly isn't effective just doesn't make sense. If you don't take action, you're basically saying you expect him to turn things around, which seems unlikely. Last year showed us that a change can bring hope. I've been saying for a while that Getsy hasn't done a good job. During the offseason, I voiced my concerns. And while some fans defended him, it's clear now that he was a problem with the Chicago Bears as well. Good offensive coaches can elevate their quarterbacks, no matter the circumstances. Take Minshew's time with the Indianapolis Colts, for example. He nearly led that team to the playoffs, finishing with a winning record, even though the Colts weren't particularly strong. I'd argue the Raiders have better offensive weapons than the Colts did last season. Sure, players like Devontae Adams and Michael Mayer have struggled with injuries, and others haven't stepped up as expected, but the talent is there. On the defensive side, I still believe in Patrick Graham. Despite the Chiefs scoring 27 points, some of those were directly related to the offense's mistakes, like Minshew's fumble that gave the Chiefs a short field. This has been a recurring issue. Turnovers are making life difficult for the defense. Just look back to Week 1 against the Chargers. Turnovers resulted in easy points for them. The Raiders need a coach who can design better plays. I was watching the Bengals game recently, and they executed a brilliant play near the goal line. They lined up in shotgun with Jamar Chase in motion. As the defense shifted, it created a one-on-one opportunity for Chase against a linebacker, showcasing creativity that I haven't seen from Getsy. At this point, I believe I could come up with better plays than Getsy. Just throw the ball up to Brock Bowers in the end zone instead of trying to run against one of the best defenses in the league. It just doesn't make sense to keep pushing that approach. Next week, the Raiders face the Cincinnati Bengals, and it'll be interesting to see how things unfold. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you next time with another video.